Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hey guys, I'm Nariman Hamden, and this is Driven, Unscripted Success podcast. Got another awesome guest on today. Today we have Deborah Razo. Deborah is the founder of WREN, which is the Women's Real Estate Network, and she helps with empowering women through real estate and education. She's been featured on Forbes, and she is a coach. She also flips homes. She is a real estate investor. How you doing? Come on
I'm
in.
great, thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Where are you zooming in from?
Oh, I'm zooming in from Los Angeles.
Oh, such bad weather over there, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right?
So
Yeah.
tell us.
Great weather, bad taxes.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm in Naples, Florida, so I don't envy your taxes. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is for sure.
That is for sure. I recently met a person a few days ago, and they lived in California their entire life, and they just recently moved to Washington because of the taxes. And they're loving it there now. So it's a little bit of an investment for them, but they're acting. So give us a little snapshot about what you do and what your business is.
Yeah, sure. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. So I've been doing this silly, self-starting thing for quite some time. I've had several different businesses. I currently own and operate two. I have my real estate investment business and I have the Women's Real Estate Network. But honestly, I didn't start in the real estate realm until about 15 years ago. I had a change of life. I had a car accident that had me healing for over a year. And I really, it was really one of those things that I had the time to sit and ask myself the questions that we kind of avoid, which is like, am I really living the life I want? And the answer was no. I had built a business, but I wasn't running it, it was running me. And for anybody who's tried their hand at entrepreneurship, you find you end up being, owner, operator, janitor, right? Like,
Sure.
everything, right?
You do all of it.
Yeah, you do it all. And, I realized I wanted more freedom. Like I had kids, I wanted more freedom. I wanted that thing called passive income. And, being a slightly A-type woman, I went ahead and Googled that and real estate started popping up. And I thought I got to get me some, right? And I didn't know how to go about it. I started educating and, networking, and I dipped my toe in to buy a flip. And I was scared and exhilarated at the same time. And it worked. And so I did it again and again and again. And I started, investing in single families in Memphis, Tennessee, and then multifamilies I've got in Arizona and Texas, and I even have a bed and breakfast in Puerto Rico. And along the way, I wanted to surround myself with women who wanted the same thing I wanted, right? Like to invest in real estate as a vehicle for income, whether you're like a single mom who is wanting to, provide for her family, or whether you're an at-home mom wanting to close the gap on having a good vacation in the summer or that private school, right? Like,
absolutely.
So I started surrounding myself with women like that, and it's been a no-brainer to continue that journey ever since. So yeah, so that's kind of like how that all ties together,
I mean, life-changing, from having such a traumatic experience, I mean, over a year recovering from a car accident. So, and then to building what you've built, and basically you wanted to be in control of your own time,
I did.
which is nice.
I wanted people look at real estate and say, yes, financial freedom. And yes, financial freedom.
Sure.
But there's a lot of other freedoms that come with that, right? There's time freedoms, there are energy freedoms, right? Like
Yes.
soul freedoms, like, like,
Yeah, it's just
yeah,
free
so
in every which way.
yeah, every which way, and real estate can provide that, and it's aggravating. It's an aggravating business.
Oh, for
Just know
sure.
that when you start your journey, and the fact of the matter is, it's not only I say that the Women's Real Estate Network is a lot of women because we hope to provide net worth as well as self worth. Because the fact of the matter is, when you start someplace and you have a big goal, you have to change your mindset in it.
Absolutely.
You are in it, right? And when after my accident, I knew I wanted to change things and I didn't know how. And so my brother, who took care of me during that time, had just done a Tony Robbins event, and he was like, maybe you should go, and I was like, all right. So I did my first event after I was well enough, and then I started doing events all the time because I knew I didn't need just strategies. I needed a new story. I needed
Sure.
to believe that I could have the life I dreamt. And
Sure.
that takes it takes courage to move into your new power, and it takes practice, constant practice to do it, So and therefore I help other people do that as well. I'm actually a trainer for Tony and help people make their transformations as well, and that's part of my coaching programs. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So when you think back, are there any moments that you'd say really changed the game for you in your career?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can think of one in particular.
Mm.
So I had been flipping in Los Angeles and growing the Women's Real Estate Network. Pre-COVID, we were in 12 different communities, 12 different cities, and had chapter leaders in every one of them. Now that we're post-COVID, we're all online. But pre-COVID, I decided to go up to our Seattle, Washington chapter. Um, um, just for a visit, check on them, find out how things were going. And they happened to have a woman there that was speaking who was a developer. And I was like, dang, woman developer, like
Yeah.
you don't meet very many of those, right?
No.
And she
Yeah.
spoke and she was really interesting. And I went up to her afterwards and I was like, wow, you're a developer. That's so cool. And she's like, well, you're a flipper, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I used to be a flipper. Developing is so much easier. And I was like, what?
Hmm.
And she and I had a conversation. Yeah, it's a lot more preparation work up in front because you're doing all the, getting all the permitting, getting all the engineers, getting everybody on board. But then, you build ground up and it's just easy. It goes up like that. The fact of the matter is, I could never see myself as a developer because I never knew anybody who was another woman who was doing it and
Sure.
who had who opened my mind to it. And sure enough, I came back to LA, and it's like when you're shopping for a car and then all of a sudden those cars that you're looking at, you see them everywhere, right? Like
Yes.
you don't know
Yes.
you don't know, like, then you're somehow tuned in to this, like, oh, okay, this is what I could be. I met another woman who had a construction company and we partnered to develop. And so
Wow.
I could add developer to my list. And I think that's what's kind of cool. Like I I don't, I've gotten a lot of great education from men. I'm around men all the time. I love them. It's not anything about that. But when I see another person that I identify with, like a woman, maybe a mother, that's like doing things that I think, oh, is that available to me? Could I do that?
Sure.
And I think that's part of what the Women's Real Estate Network is about. Like,
Well,
meet
which
other
which is
people.
it's very empowering,
Yes.
when you see a woman that's, that confident and takes on, becoming a developer, which is not typical in that, it's typically run by
Yeah.
a man, typically that's who developers typically are.
Well, and I've never walked up to a man developer and he said, "Oh, I used to do that. You can do that too. It's easy, right?" Like, it's,
Right, right,
and
right.
there's God love the bravado, but there's a little more competition when it comes to the male species. Whereas I think the women are more like open and collaborative, so it's just a little more,
Sure.
yeah. So, yeah, that changed my perspective here. I mean, my head first, and then it changed my life, right? Because then I grew the skills of development, and now I have that skill set in my tool bag, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so
It's
it's
nice to
like,
have, you know?
yeah, and it's interesting. Like you never know who you can meet that could influence you in whatever way, right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So what's a skill or habit you think doesn't get enough credit for contributing to your success?
Oh. Um, I think that one of the things that has contributed to my success is knowing what my outcome was. And I think a lot of people do goals, but they
Sure.
really don't attach themselves to why they want what they want because it's really that why. And I know a lot of people talk about it, but you have to be associated with it. Like
Sure.
I got strongly associated with the fact that I wanted freedom. I got strongly associated with it, like so strongly that it helped me deal with all the obstacles I had to overcome to get it, right?
Yeah.
You have to have
Absolutely.
something. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be crap things that happen. There's going to be problems, right?
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
you have to have that association with something that you want to get you through those problems. And fortunately, and I tell all my mentees, like, you need to look at yourself as a problem solver. And because the truth of the matter is, as a real estate investor, my phone doesn't ring unless there's a problem, right? Like I have rentals. Like nobody calls me and says, all your rents came in on time. Like,
Yeah, good luck.
it's never happening. Does somebody call me when there's an issue? Yes, it
Yeah,
is. Right? I flip houses. Nobody calls me if like everything is happening perfectly, right? There's
right.
the only reason my phone rings is because there's an issue. So I really have to be aware that I need to be resourceful and in a great place to be able to problem solve. And I've had to learn that encountering problem after problem after problem because I knew my outcome was that freedom, right? So
Sure.
yeah, that's like that daily practice brings about, what it is I wanted in the long run. What is it that they say? You overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's that consistency and looking at myself and being resourceful with other people
Sure.
on how to solve something, I
Sure.
think.
And being able to adjust to situations and circumstances, to get you to the next level as well.
Yeah.
Um, so, leading a team has its challenges. And I mean, I'm sure you've got quite the team with everything you're involved in. What's your leadership style? And can you give us an example how it helped you through a challenging moment?
Yeah. I'm a really collaborative leader. I believe that, I put teams together and, I'm not an expert contractor. I'm not an electrician or a plumber, right? I have to lean on their expertise to do that. But I think what a really good leader does is cast a vision, right? Cast a vision of how they want to see things done. I've studied a lot of leadership. Yeah, I study the big leaders, Milton Hershey, Steve Jobs, what their attributes were, how they led, because leading is such an interesting subject. How a person leads is how something gets done, right? And
Right.
and you not only have to have a realm of influence, but you also have to have um, uh, uh, be able to meet the expression to help them understand what your vision and your outcome is. You
Yes.
know, and, for me, I'll just take for an example when I'm flipping a house, I have certain deadlines and I have certain ways that are going to be marketable for this house at the end. And I need to make sure that my contractors know and that everybody who's working on the house knows what those are so that we're all working together to make that happen. Right. Um,
Right. Right.
and so yeah, there's been a lot of learning involved in how to lead, how to influence, but and I think it's still a work in progress. I think
Oh,
that's
for sure.
one of the areas of growth that I really enjoy. But yeah, that's that's how I do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How do you encourage your team to think outside the box and bring new ideas to the table?
Yeah. That's really interesting because I'll just use an example with, with my flips again, you know, I love for them to bring things to is there any way we can solve this? Do you know any way? Let's think of 3 ways to solve this problem. Like really like involving them in the brainstorming. And I think, sometimes, people get stuck in a mental rut, and have a
Yes.
hard time thinking, out of the box. But then, sometimes what I'll do is I'll propose something really outrageous, just say like there's no bad ideas, we're just going to brainstorm here, but that might click something in for them, right?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think there are really, I mean, everybody has their different attributes, and some people are really good at the mechanics of something but don't have a lot of creativity in something, and have to be fed, have to be encouraged to be
Yes.
creative along the
Yeah.
way. And I think that then, and when you provide that space, then things start to bubble up. Then people start to think about how to solve things in a more creative way. And so, and everybody wants to be involved in the success of something. Everybody wants to stand
Absolutely.
back and go, "Wow, that was beautiful. Wow, we made that happen." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
And
for
and
sure.
so I think that's really important too, to be encouraging all along the way.
Absolutely. So what's a day in your life look like, and how do you juggle work and everything else in your life? This should be great.
That's funny.
And go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, well, just gonna get really real here. So last year I was diagnosed with a fast-growing cancer tumor, and
Oh,
I went through chemo and radiation, and I was declared cancer-free in December. Yay!
hey, wow,
Um, and it's changing the way I do things, you know.
for
Uh,
sure.
I've I have to say I'm so blessed. I love what I do, and so sometimes in the past it's been really hard to turn it off. Um, I work long hours. I work on the
Sure.
weekends. I love it. Like it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
It's hard for me to stay away from it. And now, I think my health suffered because of it, and I didn't take care of myself as well as I should be. And
sure.
it was a bit of a wake up call for that. So my work life balance is changing now. I'm spending more time walking in nature. I'm
Ah,
meditating. I drink green juices in the morning. You know, um, I have a little more space in my schedule to take care of myself. And not that I didn't take care of myself before, but I wasn't doing as good a job, right? I would get so involved in what I was working on that I'd forget to eat, and then I'd be like starving, and
yeah,
then grab something crappy for me to eat, later in the day.
just whatever that arm's length. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You get wrapped up
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
the grunt of the work, and then you enjoy it at the same time, so it doesn't seem like work, and you're very bubbly and you like to, socialize, so it all ties in together. And
Right.
then before you know it, it's like, I didn't even go for a walk today. I didn't even
I
eat.
didn't I didn't
I
go
didn't
for a
take an
walk.
hour to myself,
Right.
and it
Or
happens.
I have to go to that. I have to go, pick that thing up. I'll just stop. I'll just do a drive through. What is
Right.
that?
Yeah.
And eat in my car, right? Like,
Right. Like, yeah. Like, no.
yeah, yeah. So asking that question, that's why I laugh. Like, I'm in the midst of transitioning how I'm doing things,
Good. Yeah.
and um, it's there's also learning there. My delegation skills probably were not up to snuff.
Sure,
Like
you were taking it all on. You're like, oh, I'll just make the call and deal with
I'll
this.
just do it.
Yeah,
I'll deal with
I
it. No
got
big
it.
deal.
I'll do
Yeah.
the job. I'll does. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
easier just to
right. It's
fall
just
into
easier.
that.
Yeah. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm spending a little more time in, taking my team and letting them know how I want something done so that I can, leave it to them to do,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so things are changing right now. So
Good.
I'm still, I'm still working, but I'm putting a lot more free time into my schedule, and you know,
You're
I got
learning
I got
balance.
I got some passive income, so I could do that
Yeah. Nice.
without
Nice.
without having to scale back my lifestyle. I'll just say it that way, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Well
which is
said.
part,
Yeah.
which was part of the point.
Right, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
and it's it's hard to figure out that balance between work and personal, at times. So it seems like you're starting to figure it out. And it's more so, like you said, you have to delegate the tasks to your team. You
Right.
can't do it all on your
Right.
own. And you have to have, whether it's even an hour in the morning to yourself or in the evening, it really makes a difference.
Really makes a difference.
Yeah, it really makes
Yeah.
a difference, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, has there been a book, a podcast, or someone that's really changed your outlook or approach? I know you mentioned Tony Robbins, but
Oh
any
yeah. Yeah.
others?
Yeah. For sure that that organization has changed a lot of things. Um, there was an opportunity for me to learn coaching skills with him, and I'm one of like 200 trainers worldwide that he flies out to help people make lasting change at the events. And in that trainer group, um, it's a really unique group. We're all leaders in our own lives. We all have coaching skills, and it's been a super influence on me. And it's been a super influence on me because um, I can't get away with shit there. Oh, sorry.
You're fine. Uh, but yeah, they hold you accountable.
And there is, we have standards that we hold each other to in a loving way, right? Like,
Sure.
I know you can do better than this. I know this isn't your best self. Look, I see that this is what's happening with you, right? And that's very insightful. That's very, I'm super blessed. I have that kind of accountability with people, that they can
Yeah,
hold me to a higher standard, that they can lift me up when I need lifting up, that they
that's
can be there for me, so um and I have my own little clan in that group, and we're all over the world, and we talk, we have a chat going all the time. And somebody who says, I know you're more resourceful than that,
sure. Yeah,
right?
with
You need
you.
somebody to
Yeah,
encourage you. Yeah. I've
absolutely.
had, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of mentors and partners in the real estate realm that we have fun while we're making money, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
like, let's laugh along the way. It'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's nice about, finding the right group, to bounce ideas off of. And it's just having like-minded people, in a group that are positive, that can tell, that you get to know each other so well that they can see when you're, struggling with
Yep.
within yourself,
Right.
and pushing yourself like, can I do this? It's something new, and they're like, hey, come on. Like,
Yeah.
you're fine. You
Yeah.
did this before. It's just another new task, and you've got this. Which is
Right.
nice to
Yeah.
have that group,
Yeah.
to be there for you.
Finding your tribe, right? Finding
Yeah.
those people. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of pushing through and new tasks, how do you tackle learning new things, especially stuff that's way outside of your comfort zone?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Well, for one thing, I kind of, I've learned a little bit about myself in tackling hard tasks. I'm a morning person. I've always been a morning person, and it's funny because I have a daughter who's a night person. And it's like I see her coming alive at like 8 o'clock at night. And I'm,
Right.
yeah. I'm
You're
going to
like,
bed. I'll
going to
see you
bed.
later.
That sounds exhausting. Too much energy at night.
You know,
Good luck.
I'm a morning person, and I know that if there's something I'm learning or something for me to do, it needs to take place in the morning because that's when I'm peak, like that's it when I'm, just naturally in a better state so that I can absorb what it is that needs to be absorbed. I'm also a huge believer if it's something that I am attempting to do in business or, something else, I'm a huge believer in mentors, like,
Absolutely. I
you
agree.
know,
Yeah. I've got several mentors as
increase,
well.
like decrease your learning and your learning time and get a mentor and know how somebody who's accomplished it has done it, right? It's
Absolutely.
just so much easier and you get to watch and learn and have questions along the way. And I'm a huge believer in that. So
Absolutely. I agree with you on that one. So let me ask you, well, you mentioned passive income. So you obviously invest, in multi-units and flipping, all that good stuff. What, I guess, let me see what the questions I want to ask you. So if somebody was listening, or somebody that's listening right now that wanted to to learn more and do what you're doing and get into passive investments and basically make money in their sleep, like such as yourself, what would you suggest to them? What are a few key notes that you would suggest to them to easily get into it as a beginner?
Right. First of all, I just want to be clear that flipping houses is not passive.
No, definitely not. It's more
It is
multi-units.
active
Yeah.
income. It is active income. So my passive income is my single families and my multi-units, depending on how you're investing in multi-units. As a limited partnership, you can invest in multi-units passively. That's pretty easily. And I'm both active and passive in multis, depending on which units that you're talking about. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to get into Airbnbs and that'll be passive income. Airbnbs isn't passive income. The turnovers, you have to still manage a lot of stuff unless
Yes.
you hand that off to a manager. So my first, piece of advice is know what it is you want out of it. Right? Like if you're truly looking for passive income, and you don't have any time, don't have a lot of time to put in, then know that that's what you're looking for and then educate yourself on really looking at passive ways to make income. um, if you have time and you do want to dedicate some time to it, whether it's getting a single family to spit off some rents to you, or whatever that is, once again, know your outcome first and then work backwards into the avenues that you have to do it, and then also take account of your resources. Do I have time? Do I have money? Do I have neither? How would I make things work if I don't have either? Right? Because there's ways to make things work in this business,
Sure.
depending on that. But don't go down a path. And one of the things that people, especially newbies, get tied up on, and they call it the shiny object syndrome. Like there are a lot of different ways to make money in real estate, a lot, and you can easily get distracted and go down one path and then take another seminar, going down another path, another path, another path. And that's why I'm like, know what your outcome is, and then start to work backwards and decide, what vehicles you could use for that outcome, and then go down one, go all the way down one and see if you like it, and see if that works for you and see if that has the outcome for you. And then if it does, stick with it. And if it doesn't, change then, right?
Yeah.
Get mentors along the way. There's so many great podcasts and books out there. Join an organization. WREN is an organization. Join a local real estate networking organization. Meet other investors, right? Those are really low cost entry points, right? The books, the podcasts, the real estate clubs. Usually they're, you go to an event, it's $25, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty. So it's a really good way of getting to know what it is you want to do.
Then you meet other people, and then it starts guiding you into, you know, as you talk to these people and talk to them about what you're looking, to get into, let's say, the Airbnb, as you mentioned, and you start talking and they start giving you their feedback, which helps because then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, maybe this isn't what I want to get into,
Maybe
I
this
don't
isn't
like this aspect of it. I don't want to have to do the turnovers. I don't want to have to be the janitor. I don't want to be the handyman. And,
right.
go
Yeah.
to you in another group and you meet somebody else. So absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what incentives do you have? What do you got going on in the next 6 to 12 months that's coming up?
Yeah. I'm walking the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain.
Yay, that's gonna be a great
Yay.
one. That's
My
gonna be
my
amazing.
son actually did it about 2 years ago, and he raved about it. And then, considering the past year, what I've had to deal with, like
Sure,
my husband and I both feel like we want to break, and we want to be able to, it's supposed to be a spiritual pilgrimage, and
absolutely.
so we want to do that. So we're doing that, and then we've got a bunch of real estate things, scheduled for after we get back. We get back in June, so July, August, September. We're having, our regular events. We have monthly events with WREN, and then we're having another event in November that's going to be in person. So we'll be gearing up for that.
Great. So as we're wrapping up the interview here, if anybody wants to connect with you, how do they get a hold of you? How do they become a
Sure.
part of
Yeah.
REN or
If you wanna connect with me one-on-one, you can go to DeborahRazo.com. It's DeborahRazo.com. If you're interested in looking into the Women's Real Estate Network, go to REN. That's the acronym RENinspires.com, and look for our calendar. We have events once a month that you can just pay $25 to come and listen to a woman speak about her business model. That's what our format is. So our next event is in May 14th, I believe, and it's a
okay.
woman who has developed a business model for midterm rentals, specifically catering to the insurance industry. So
Interesting.
it should be pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
That does sound interesting. I'm definitely gonna look into joining the group and just learning more. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
fabulous. We'd love to have you.
yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And thanks for checking in, guys. And now you know how to get a hold of Deborah. If you want to join REN, just go right to that website or go right to DeborahRazo.com. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.